Hi, everyone. Okay, so this has worked about half of the times that I've done this talk. Sam promises that it's going to work today. Let's see. Yes. Okay. So I'm Kim Bergman. I'm a licensed psychologist in the U.S., co-owner of Growing Generations, and I am going to talk about, this is a bit awkward because I don't have a screen here, so I apologize. I'm going to talk about ethical surrogacy. So the way that we do surrogacy, most of the big agencies in the U.S., is as a collaboration between a whole bunch of fully informed and consenting adults who all come together so that you can be a parent and end up with kids like these and mine, who you'll meet later today. The surrogate, intended parents, donor, lawyer, psychologist, doctor, insurance broker, travel agent, cab driver. It's truly a village to make a child experience. And I'm going to talk now about one of the central characters in that village, which is the surrogate. Okay, so there's one. And some of you who've been to previous of Sam's conferences have met Kelly, one of our surrogates, and she always says that surrogates are like unicorns. You know, they're hard to spot, and people are always looking for them. So there are quite a few unicorns in the audience today, so I urge you to find them and talk to them. So surrogates must have had their own children, so they must have given birth to their own child, love being pregnant. They have a strong support network. They're physically and emotionally healthy. They are fully screened medically, psychologically, and legally. They are financially secure. So they're not doing this for the money, although we do believe that they should be, and in the U.S. they are compensated for their time and effort and wear and tear on their bodies. That's not their main motivation. They're good communicators. They have no history of drug or alcohol abuse, criminal background, or any psychological mental health history. And all of these things are vetted and tested and verified and not left up to just self-report. And ultimately, they want to do this to give someone the gift of a family. They, as I mentioned, have to be moms themselves, and they know the joy of being a parent, and they want to give that same joy to someone else. All right, a couple of real surrogates. This is Carrie, first-time surrogate from California, and this is what she says. My family and I have chosen to be a surrogate for a few reasons. This is a priceless gift that I can share with someone who wants the greatest joy you can have in life, being a parent. I'll be teaching my children a valuable lesson in giving. And that's an important theme for surrogates. Surrogacy really is a family project. It's not something that the woman is doing in isolation. So her kids know, her parents know, her own parents, her husband or partner or wife knows, and everybody's on board. I apologize to this end. Oh, okay, I'll take a turn looking at that screen. Excellent. So it's definitely a group effort. All right, here's Christine, and she says, and she cared for an Aussie couple. She says, I first came to surrogacy because I felt a strong longing to assist other couples in their quest for creating a family. Having my own children came so easily for me, I always held a place in my heart for those on a longer path. My past 2 surrogacy experiences brought such joy and love to my whole family, I find it very exciting to begin a third. So, third-time surrogate. All right, so let's talk about these unicorns and who they are and why they do it. So they are motivated by a healthy mix of altruism and healthy narcissism. What do I mean by that? Well, the altruism part is, I think, sort of obvious. They want to give this ultimate gift to somebody. They are by nature very giving people, often in giving professions, not always, but often teachers, care providers, nurses, stay-at-home moms. And they are the kind of people who would sign up to give a kidney, give blood, give platelets. That really is in their nature. They would write giant checks to their favorite charities if they could, and this is a way that they can fulfill on that philanthropic wish that they have for themselves. The healthy narcissism. They know that not everyone can do this. This takes a really, really special, sort of an expert. And they know that they're going to be vetted. They know they're going to be screened. So, they have a healthy attitude of, I'm good enough that I can do that. I can get the job done for someone, and I can do it. They feel the honor and joy of being able to do this. The moment that they really treasure the gold for them, people often misunderstand and think that they can't wait to see the baby. They're not really all that excited about seeing the baby. They want to see the family. So they actually love to see, you and the parents holding their baby. One of my surrogates tell me often favorite stories of first day in the hospital where the parents got peed on because they put the diaper on wrong, or they were testing the bottle and hadn't tightened it and milk spilled. I mean, surrogates love to see that. They want to see the family that they've created. That's their prize at the end. And they welcome the relationship now and in the future. For us at Growing Generations, and for all of the big agencies that are represented here, and even those that aren't, this is a real relationship. It's not a transaction. So there's a real relationship between you, the parents, and the surrogate, and it is, for most people, lifelong. Okay, so, excuse me, ingredients of ethical family building that lead to the most positive outcome. Informed consent, thorough screening and education. I'm going to talk about each one of these in a moment. Creating the experience as a respectful and meaningful collaboration, not as a commercial transaction. Again, one of the big misperceptions and misconceptions about surrogacy. Openness, honesty, and transparency. As you heard in the results of surrogacy that was in the previous panel, this is incredibly important. And valuing every member of the surrogacy team. So informed consent, this is one of the most important ingredients. This is what makes this a relationship and not a transaction. It's what makes this ethical and not exploitative. So everybody knows in advance what they're getting into, what they're signing up for, what their expectations are for their role, for each other's roles now and in the future. And everybody enters into the agreement with full choice and information. So, surrogates know about the risks, they know about the benefits, they know what they're going to be paid and when. Parents know what's expected of them. This is all really, really important. And everybody enters into the agreement without any coercion or without anybody feeling forced into it. It's actually one of the important things when people use family members or friends as surrogates or donors. That is really important to have a professional vet. I can't tell you the number of times somebody's sister who said, yes, I want to be their surrogate, in private with me said, no, I really don't. I don't know how to get out of it. I don't want to hurt their feelings. So it's really important that even when you're using somebody you know and love, you're not skipping these steps, because it's really important to understand that having eggs doesn't make you an egg donor. Having a uterus does not make you a surrogate. And not having those doesn't make you less of a parent. So these are the ingredients that are needed, but they are, but there's much more than that that's required. All right. So surrogates are thoroughly screened before they're matched. That means that they have gone through a lengthy screening process. In our program, and again, when I say in our program, I think I speak for all of the big agencies. We all do it pretty similarly. But there's some ingredients that you need to make sure that you're not skipping. So surrogates have to be fully psychologically screened by a professional. Their insurance has to be vetted to make sure that either their insurance will work for surrogacy or they can apply and be approved for a policy that will cover surrogacy. That they're in the right state legally, because it's not legal in all states in the U.S. And that not only they're in a state that's legal, but your parental rights are going to be able to be established, because not every state does that equally. If you're gay, or if you're single, or if you're using your own genetics, or if you're not, all of these things need to be vetted ahead of time before you're matched. The more that we front load the process for you in the beginning, the less we have to do cleanup later. And that is one of the advantages of working with people who really know what they're doing, because you don't want to be cleaning up things later. It's quite messy. Okay, and also all of the results of the screening are shared with the parents, so there's no secrets. By the way, parents are also screened, but I'm just reminding you I'm focusing on the surrogates in this talk. Of course, all of the parties are screened. Okay. So surrogates' past medical records are looked at by a professional ahead of time, their OB records, and then they also undergo a current medical exam, head-to-toe physical, uterine ultrasound, full blood work. Their financial status is reviewed. So we look at their taxes, we look at their pay stubs. We want them to have a minimum, they're required to have a minimum family income. And that really is, again, because we don't want them to be doing this out of any sense of coercion or anything like that. And if they need the surrogacy money to live, then their home life isn't as the level of stability that we want it to be, and B, they're going to be sorely disappointed when they are in this process for 18 months or 2 years, and they're paid most of their fee at the end, and small monthly allowance. It's not a value judgment about them being paid. We want them to be paid, but we just don't want that to be their main motivation. Frankly, it's not worth it for anyone who's been pregnant. It's not worth the money, and it's not that much money over the whole scope of the process. All the parties undergo a verified criminal background check, and also we vet the surrogate support system. I mentioned earlier, this is a family affair, so we want to make sure husband's on board or partner's on board. There's going to be sacrifice to the whole family. There are going to be days where the surrogate wakes up with swollen ankles and needs to be on bed rest for 24 hours. And I always tell surrogates that Murphy's Law, that will be the day your child has some PTA presentation or something at school or something that you have to miss. Surrogacy is inconvenient. So we want to make sure everybody's aware of that. All right. So we want you to have a baby, but we also want you to have a great journey getting there. So that's why it's so important that everybody's educated, everybody knows what their role is up front, so that everyone can have a treasured journey. Okay, so the essential ingredients of an ethical surrogacy relationship: trust, communication, transparency, openness and honesty, mutual respect, and commitment. Okay. So trust is the foundation. I tell people surrogacy is really not for the faint of heart. It is a marathon wrapped up in a roller coaster with a blindfold on, and you're trusting a seatbelt, and a whole bunch of people have done what they're supposed to do. It is a really tricky, challenging, long-term process, and it is scary, and you can absolutely do it without trusting all of the parties that you've put together, but you will have a really hair-raising journey. So, I kind of say, if you wouldn't get on the roller coaster, you shouldn't do this. You want to make sure that you're getting on a roller coaster that at least you feel safe, that it's going to be, it may be harrowing and terrifying, but you're going to get to the other end alive. So that's how I describe trust in the surrogacy relationship. Transparency and openness and honesty, again, it's just really important. We have parents who come to us and say, I want to talk to the surrogate every single day, but I don't want to scare her, so let's just tell her we're going to talk however she wants, but then in the end, we're going to chase after her every day. And I say, no, that's going to be a disaster. So we have surrogates and parents who want to talk every single day and go to every single appointment, and we have surrogates and parents who want to speak much less regularly and have a lovely, cordial, but not super intimate relationship. And all of that and everything in between is appropriate as long as everybody knows what they're getting into and is on the same page. So we really don't want to be hiding anything in terms of the roles and expectations, and for later too. Sometimes parents will say, well, we after the baby's born, we don't ever want to talk to the surrogate again. And I say, well, we may be able to find you a surrogate who signs on for that. We don't have a judgment about it, but we need to make sure that surrogate knows from the beginning that that's the expectation. And there are surrogates who say, I don't care, that's fine. It's not our first choice, and it's not what we recommend, but we're here to guide and serve and not necessarily dictate some of those kind of value conversations. And always tell the truth and don't withhold anything that's important. That's why we vet so thoroughly. Communication. So this is, as I mentioned, a real relationship, and it's going to be fraught with all the things that relationships are fraught with. We do a lot of educating at the beginning with both surrogates and clients about, surrogates and parents, about communication and how to have the relationship work as you go through it. Mutual respect is kind of obvious, but really important and isn't always there. The surrogate is not a paid employee. This is not a transaction. This is not a womb for hire. And, everybody needs to be on the same page about that. Again, I've mentioned this is a marathon and not a sprint, so we want to make sure everybody's really committed. And in those cases where, for example, parents have, one precious embryo and they know that after one embryo, they're not going to continue. We just want to have lots of thorough conversations in the beginning about that so everybody is on board and knows what the journey might look like. Okay, there we go. So for people who want to be parents, surrogacy is a great option. It works. It's not easy, but it is simple. It's not. It really isn't fraught with risk. It doesn't have to be fraught with risk. We all do a pretty great job of managing all of the moving parts so that, those things that can be controlled are, and those things are controlled by doing all the work up front and making sure that we're front-loading things as much as possible so that the surprises in this journey are, yay, you're pregnant, or it's a boy, it's a girl. And, there are the occasional things that no one can control, whether someone gets pregnant ultimately, whether there are medical issues, but we control everything that we can to make the journey go as well as possible and be a treasured experience for everybody. We're creating lives and families and building families, but we're also creating experiences for the surrogate, for the donor. We want this to be positive for everybody, and of course for the children who, it is easy to look at the babies, but we also want to be looking at the whole future of what that child's life is going to be like and what their story is, and all of that is done with the front work. The result, happy families created through ethical family building with the help of a surrogate. And that's one of our surrogates, Carrie. And there's a family, very cute. Another family, super cute, adorable. There's my family, super cute, I don't know, kind of adorable. And that's it, ethical family building. Do you have a couple minutes for questions? Yes.
I'd just like to put in a plug, no offense. When I spoke to you a number of years ago, you were travelling back up to Sydney to have a picnic with all the surrogates you created up here. And I think that ongoing continuity is wonderful.
Yes, we're having brunch tomorrow with about 30 of our families and their kids, and they've all become good friends, so it's quite lovely. Yeah, thank you. Other questions? Anybody?
So you mentioned the compensation, and obviously that's not a driving factor, but it is a factor. And I'm kind of interested in some examples of how those discussions take place, what the amounts are, how you sort of handle those. That sort of not an objection, but that wall if you come to it.
Right. Well, so the way that we do it, and the way that other big agencies, other U.S. agencies do it, it's not really a negotiation. So it's not like each case is different. There's a compensation that the surrogates agree to, and it's pretty standard in the industry in the U.S. It's somewhere typically between about $20,000 and $30,000. That's pretty much what most agencies compensate surrogates. Some factors increase that, not over that, but in that range. Surrogates who've done surrogacy before get a little bit more. Surrogates who are working in California get a little bit more because of supply and demand, and that's where most people want their surrogates to live. But it's still, the range is about between $20,000 and maybe at the upper end $35,000, and it's not negotiable. So it's set up in advance. The surrogate's full compensation package is arranged ahead of time. So that includes her lost wages that she's entitled to, whatever travel, all of that is managed and paid for by the agency. So when you're presented with a surrogate, she is fully screened psychologically, medically, legally, her insurance is vetted, and you'll see her financial packet. And again, it's not something that the surrogate determines. I mean, we have had surrogates say to us, well, I want $50,000, and we say, that's great, you can't be one of our surrogates if you can find that somewhere else, So it's not a negotiation type of thing. Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
Some of the reasons where things haven't gone so well?
Well, that's a good question. So her question is, where have things not gone well? In our 20 years of doing this, we've never had a surrogate change her mind. We've never had a surrogate, threaten to change her mind. By the way, even if she did, she wouldn't have a legal leg to stand on. But we've never had that, and neither have the other agencies, I don't think. So we don't have that. We don't have surrogates, doing crazy stuff, doing drugs, or leaving the country, or anything like that. So all of it, in my 20 years experience, falls in the category of interpersonal stuff, and it's all about expectations. Sometimes I feel like a glorified marital therapist, where the surrogate and her family's on one side, but that's why the better job I do at the beginning of matching people appropriately, the more obsolete I become later in the process, which is the goal. So it really is about front-loading these conversations and about predicting all possible. We talk about all medical things. We talk about abortion. We talk about selective reduction, amnios, C-sections, who's in the room when the baby's born, how often are you going to talk on the phone, how are you going to talk, Skype, email, what's your relationship going to be like after the baby's born? And we can't control every single thing people think they're going to want may be different from how it unfolds, but we talk about that too. So what if it's a little bit different? What if, and in the screening process, if we have a surrogate who says, I must speak to the parents every single day and for the rest of their lives, then, that surrogate's not going to make it into our program. We want our surrogates to have a certain amount of flexibility and understanding that their purpose in taking on this project is to help create a family. If they end up with great friends along the way, that's a bonus. If they end up with a lifelong extended family, that's a bonus. If they end up with their own children, have a whole new outlook on philanthropy, that's a bonus. But the goal for a surrogate, the number one goal, is to help someone else become a parent. So it's really through a very, very, in our program, about a 6 to 9 month screening process that has multi layers. And at the end, for us, we have sort of a giant funnel, and out of about 100 women that apply, that funnel will spit out about 1 or 2 appropriate surrogates who will become surrogates in our program. And that is what, for us and for CSP, has the journeys be successful. We screen the heck out of these women. I need to be able to sleep at night. I don't want to be worried about my army of surrogates out there doing crazy stuff, and I don't. I don't have any crazy stuff, and I don't worry about it. So, but the interpersonal, the expectation is really what needs to be managed.
Kim, I have a question over here. What
Thank you.
about the other side, the parents, the screening of parents? Have you ever had a situation where you've had to say to parents that surrogacy is not suitable for them?
Yes, absolutely. We do a psychoeducational consultation. We do a criminal background check. We do a full medical check. We sort of have a philosophical stand that we're not a gate to parenthood. That's not our role. So when we've turned down somebody, it's largely been because we feel like we won't be able to match them. So, in general, the industry standard is, there's sort of an age cutoff. There's, obviously someone with a criminal history we won't serve. Unless it was, a DUI when they were 18 or something, and, this is 30 years later. But for the most part, those kinds of things. Obviously, if somebody's sitting in our office and there are obvious mental health issues, we will, we do a psychoeducational consultation, but beyond that, we will also, require, and we have required, further conversations and further professional kind of intervention. We do help people who are HIV positive have their own babies. We do help single people, slightly older than, we're not helping 80-year-olds, but we do have clients who are older than the average age that is pursuing this. So for the most part, that's what that looks like. And anything relevant is shared. So if a client did have a DUI when he was 18, we would share that with the surrogate. The reason that we share everything transparently, cancer, HIV, or anything, is obviously because, again, transparency and openness is really, really important. But we also want to protect the parents and the surrogates, because if there is any relevant material information left out, that is one backdoor grounds for nullifying a surrogacy contract, and we certainly don't want that to happen to anybody.
Thank you.
One last question. I think up the back there we've got time for.
Chairman, thanks very much. One of the concerns in this country centres on traditional surrogacy, where the surrogate uses her own egg. And the argument goes that under those circumstances, she's more likely to have difficulty with relinquishing the child and more likely to have ongoing emotional problems subsequently. What do you think about that, and what's your experience in that area?
Well, we don't do traditional surrogacy anymore, but we did do it for many years in the beginning, and really we don't do it because people don't really want to do it in the U.S. Parents don't want that, and surrogates don't typically want it. But truth be told, in our experience, we see no difference whatsoever in surrogates who are traditional surrogates to gestational surrogates, as long as they've been vetted at the beginning and screened and had all the conversations. It absolutely makes sense that it would seem like there would be more attachment, but again, we're not talking about just any woman being able to give birth to someone else's child and then hand it over. We're talking about someone who has the appropriate mindset. The surrogate's mindset is, I'm done having my children. I love being pregnant. I love being a mom. It's the best thing ever. And if I can know as a lifelong sense of fulfillment that I gave that to somebody else, I'm going to do it. A surrogate of ours who was a traditional surrogate many years ago, she's a home child care provider, and her daughter, her 9-year-old daughter at the time, had to write a little paragraph about her hero. The mom, the surrogate, sent it to me, and it said, my mom is my hero. She's very loving and giving. She takes care of other people's children, sometimes in our home and sometimes in her body. And that is the way that surrogates feel about this, whether they're traditional or gestational.
You said that you've given up traditional surrogacy. Would you do it if a client asked you, or are you not into it?
If a parent came and wanted to do it, it's not that we wouldn't do it. It's that our program is no longer set up for screening in that way, and generally surrogates are not coming to us now. We'll do anything that's ethical and reasonable. If we have a surrogate apply to our program, this month, who says, hey, I would be happy to be a traditional or a gestational surrogate, and we say, okay, that's interesting, and then 2 weeks later, I have a client in my office saying, we want a traditional surrogate, then yes, absolutely, we would work that, we would make that happen for them. It's just that we haven't had a surrogate express that wish in years at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I have a table, and I'm happy to answer ongoing questions if you have any. I'm here all day today and tomorrow, so feel free to come up. Oh. Yep.
I've certainly found traditional surrogacy works for people, but it goes down to... I'm a surrogacy counsellor. I've certainly found traditional surrogacy works for people, but it does come down to all of those issues that you raised. Very good preparation.
Yeah.
If it's not there, it can go horribly wrong, just as much as any other surrogacy can go horribly wrong.
The key is that all of the parties involved know their role. So there's a surrogate, there's a parent, there's a donor, an egg donor, maybe there's a sperm donor, maybe not, and that everyone who's playing a part in this village, this collaboration to help someone become a parent, is clear about what their role is and what their role isn't. And that's our job as professionals, to make sure that people are really well vetted and really well educated and really well supported throughout the ensuing journey.
We've we've got to have a break now, but come and ask Kim further questions if you'd like to. Thanks, Kim. That's terrific. Just a few housekeeping issues. Your program is about 40 pages because there are so many speakers. They're in alphabetical order, but they are in different by surname, but they're in different sections. There's an expert speaker section, there's an other professional section, there's parents through surrogacy, there's surrogates and donors, and children through surrogacy. If you're looking up anybody's name,